I want to present the award, the 2016 Eugene Katz Award for Excellence in the Coverage of Immigration, to Michelle Malkin of Conservative Review. Michelle?
This is an awesome tchotchke. Thank you. And we should have an extra etching here that says, "Not just a bloviator."
Okay, well, that'll be on your tombstone.
I really appreciate everyone being here, and I want to thank the Center for Immigration Studies and Mark and everyone on the staff for this award. It is definitely an honor, and when I look at the list of past recipients, I'm extremely humbled. Probably most because I am typically known for the opinionating and the punditing side of what I do. Although for people who followed me for the past quarter century, it's clear that the thing that has motivated me the most over the last quarter century has been the ability to have a platform to report stories and to give voice to narratives that have been unpopular. And as someone who was a product of an extremely progressive, small liberal arts college, Oberlin College, yes. I'm a survivor, or they survived me, one or the other. I had been steeped from a very early age in extremist identity politics and an ideology that brainwashed generations of young Americans and second generation and third generation Americans to believe that our country is inherently and institutionally and incurably racist and nativist and cruel and mean. And my experience as a child of legal immigrants has been exactly the opposite. So I've always felt, particularly as a journalist and an exerciser of the First Amendment, a special, I wouldn't call it a burden, I'd call it a blessing, to tell stories that counter those narratives. And I think the arc of my coverage from the time I worked at the Los Angeles Daily News in the very early days when the Save Our State initiative first came into the fore, seeing how a lot of my colleagues in the media were demonizing honest, law-abiding citizens who believed in the sovereignty of this country, knowing that those people were not merely people who were exercising their quote-unquote white privilege, but that they included among them many naturalized Americans who believe in the rule of law. To the days that I worked at the Seattle Times, and my eyes were opened by many good folks who worked on the front lines up on the northern border, that the problems and the lapses in security up there should not be ignored as well. And by the way, I think it was because of my time in Seattle that I was able to report, I think, one of the biggest scoops that I've had over my career, which happened 14 years ago. Some of you may remember, and some of you were probably in the same position I was. I lived in Montgomery County, Maryland at the time, being told by authorities to zigzag back and forth to avoid bullets because the DC snipers were on the loose. And it turned out, some of you may recall, that Lee Malvo, the younger of the snipers, was an illegal alien. And I got that scoop from somebody who worked on the northern border, who was familiar with an incident that happened there in 2001 when Lee Malvo and his mother, who had come to America as illegal stowaways, landed in Miami and then worked their way up to the Pacific Northwest, were apprehended, actually, by Border Patrol agents who recommended to the Seattle INS that they be detained and then deported. Their recommendation was ignored, and a series of events, of course, led Lee Malvo and his militant jihadist stepfather, John Muhammad, who killed 10 people during the Beltway sniper spree. I've always been obsessed, I think, with the intersection between people and politics and policy. And when policy fails and politics whitewashes those failures, people are hurt. And there are very real human consequences that whenever I write these stories, I never, ever forget. I'll never forget the Jamil Shah family that I first wrote and blogged about in 2008, when Jamil Shah was shot by an illegal alien who had been just recently released after serving time for assault charges. And their family has never let go of their fight against Special Order 40 and the sanctuary policies that resulted in their teenage son's death. I've never forgotten the family of Chris Egley, who was a park ranger who was shot to death by an illegal alien from Mexico wielding an AK-47. He died in the summer of 2002, and I remember contrasting the silence and the lack of any attention to this young man's death, needless death, on the border, with the inordinate amount of attention at the time that some washed-up celebrity, Jason Priestley, Beverly Hills 90210, was getting for being in a minor car crash. And the juxtaposition of these two things just, to me, just cried out for some kind of attention. And the Egley family buried their son in Cadillac, Michigan, and went on to become vocal advocates for border control. More recently, the stories that John and I have been able to tell about American workers who've been harmed by the cheap foreign labor racket and the pipeline that includes not only H-1B visas, but all of the alternative pipelines into the country, whether it's B1 or L1 or the OPT program, which John is fighting now in court, which is we struggle with the right adjective to call it Orwellian, Kafkaesque, Dickensian, all of the above. This award really, I feel, is a tribute to not to any of the storytelling that the recipients are ultimately responsible for, but more so the whistleblowers, the activists, the advocates who are the boots on the ground in what has been an eternal battle. I consider it a privilege to be able to do what I do, so this is really icing on the cake to win an award like this, but I also feel a sense of sadness. I feel like there are so many missed opportunities that my colleagues in the media have. It's such a gold mine for someone who's willing to pursue the who, what, when, where, why, and how we've gotten into the chaos that we've gotten in, whether it's the impact on national security or the impact on economic security. I'd like to be able to say that given the current political environment that things might be looking up. But then I see headlines like the ones this morning about what happened in San Jose at a Trump rally, and it's all the same characters that I've been spotlighting for years and years now, agitating. I suppose if there's any room for optimism, it's that we live in a media environment now where I think there are more channels for distribution and dissemination of information than that there ever have been. In the time that when I started, back when there were still just 3 main news channels, there was no such thing as the Drudge Report. Talk radio consisted of Rush Limbaugh, and that was it. And now we have more choices. Now, on the other hand, there's still a lot of censorship, and I don't think it is a mistake, certainly not an accident, that you go on a place like Facebook, and it is extremely hard sometimes to get alternative narratives about immigration across. Fortunately, there's also more channels to be able to deliver that message when those narratives are suppressed and censored. So we'll keep doing what we're doing, and as Mark said, the paperback for Sold Out is coming out, I think in a week or 2. We're gratified for everyone who's been able to spread the word about it, but I think more so encouraged that American workers are standing up and telling their own stories in a way that I have never seen before. They're not waiting for 60 Minutes to tell their stories for them, although it'd be great if they did, or the New York Times for that matter. I don't know what my next venture is going to be, but you can find me pretty much everywhere on Facebook and Twitter and my blogs and Conservative Review and the syndicated column, which I do have to give a special thanks to Creator Syndicate, which has syndicated me since 1999, and where much of the work of the columns that I've reported with original reporting on immigration have appeared. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.